Captain Sarah Chen stared at the holographic projection of the Galactic Council representative, her coffee mug frozen halfway to her lips. The Arxian diplomat, who looked like what would happen if you crossed a jellyfish with a disco ball, pulsed with various shades of annoyed purple. Captain Chen, I realize this may be difficult for your species to comprehend, given your unique evolutionary background, but this is a standard Class 0 quarantine procedure. Sarah set down her coffee and pinched the bridge of her nose. She'd been Earth's representative to the Galactic Council for all of 6 months, and somehow, she'd already managed to get humanity classified as an endangered species. At least that's what she thought was happening. The Council's bureaucracy was about as straightforward as a quantum physics lecture delivered by a drunk octopus. Let me get this straight, she said, counting off points on her fingers. You're saying that Earth, my homeworld, is actually a Class 0 death world? Correct. And that humans have somehow survived there for millions of years despite conditions that should have killed us? Also correct. And your solution is to evacuate the entire human species to a safe world? The Arxian's crystalline body sparkled with what Sarah had learned to recognize as smugness. Precisely. You see, Captain, your species has been living in constant danger. The atmospheric composition alone is perfectly breathable, Sarah interrupted. It contains oxygen! The Arxian's voice modulator practically squeaked with horror. A highly corrosive and reactive gas. And don't get me started on your planet's gravity, radiation levels, or the absolutely absurd number of apex predators. Sarah took a long sip of coffee, using the moment to gather her thoughts. The last thing Earth needed was an interstellar diplomatic incident because she couldn't keep her sarcasm in check. Counselor Vkr'lak, while we appreciate the Council's concern for our well-being, I'm afraid there must be some mistake. We've actually done quite well on Earth, in fact. Oh yes, we know all about your species' remarkable adaptations, Vkr'lak interrupted, their crystalline body now cycling through shades of academic enthusiasm. The ability to repair radiation damage through tanning. The bizarre process of building stronger muscles through deliberately damaging them. The capacity to survive on almost any organic matter as food. Truly fascinating. But surely you can see why the Council cannot, in good conscience, allow sentients to continue living in such conditions. Sarah felt a headache coming on. She'd need something stronger than coffee for this conversation. And where exactly would you propose relocating 8 billion humans? We've found the perfect world. Vkr'lak's excitement caused their hologram to briefly pixelate. Gentle gravity, no predators, constant moderate temperature, and absolutely no free oxygen in the atmosphere. We've even prepared enclosed habitats with properly sanitized air mixtures. For a moment, Sarah just stared. Then she started laughing. She couldn't help it. The absolute absurdity of the situation hit her all at once. Captain Chen? Vkr'lak's color shifted to concerned mauve. Are you experiencing some form of neural malfunction? Should I call for medical assistance? No. Sarah managed between chuckles. I'm fine. It's just... Vkr'lak, have you actually studied our historical records? Or just our biology? We've done extensive research on your physiological adaptations to extreme conditions, of course. The Council's xenobiologists are quite impressed by your species' resilience. Did you know you're the only known sentients who can repair broken bones? Fascinating process, really. But you haven't looked at our history, Sarah interrupted. At what humans do when we're bored, or curious, or slightly inconvenienced. Vkr'lak's colors swirled in confusion. I fail to see the relevance, Sarah grinned. It wasn't a nice grin. It was the kind of grin that had preceded every major human advancement. From the first time someone looked at a wolf and thought, I bet I could pet that, to the moment someone decided to strap themselves to a controlled explosion to see what was on the moon. Tell me, Counselor, what's the Council's policy on terraform? Absolutely forbidden. Vkr'lak's colors flashed alarm red. The modification of planetary environments is strictly prohibited. The ecological damage... Right, Sarah nodded. And how many Council enforcement ships are currently in this sector? 3 patrol cruisers, but I don't see what that has to do with... Vkr'lak suddenly stopped, their colors draining to a pale, worried pink. Captain Chen, why are you smiling like that? Sarah leaned back in her chair, steepling her fingers. Counselor, I'm going to tell you a story. It's about what happened when someone told humans they couldn't have coffee growing naturally on their continent. 3 weeks later, Sarah stood in her office aboard the International Space Station, watching Earth through the viewport. Behind her, a different Council representative, this one looking like an origami crane made of living metal, was having what she could only describe as a diplomatic meltdown. But, the regulations clearly state. Counselor Zaktal's wings twitched in agitation, causing light to scatter off their metallic surfaces. You can't just... It's completely unprecedented. Oh, I agree, Sarah said cheerfully, not turning away from the view. Nobody's ever refused evacuation from a Class 0 death world before. Mainly because nobody's ever survived on one long enough to be evacuated. Funny how that works. The council vote was unanimous. The relocation protocols are entirely voluntary, according to Section 47, subsection 12, paragraph 9 of the Galactic Charter. Sarah interrupted smoothly. I checked, twice, and humanity votes no. But the conditions, you can't possibly want to stay in such an environment. Sarah finally turned around, her expression serious. Counselor, let me explain something about humans. We don't just survive on Earth, we thrive here. Yes, it's dangerous. Yes, it's challenging. And yes, by your standards, it's probably insane, but it's our home. We built civilizations here. We created art here. We looked at everything trying to kill us and said, challenge accepted. She walked to her desk and picked up what looked like an ordinary potted plant. You know what this is? Zaktal's sensors scanned it briefly. Some form of indigenous flora? This is a ghost pepper plant. We bred it, for fun, because regular peppers weren't spicy enough. She set the plant down. We took one of nature's warning signs, capsaicin, a chemical deterrent, and treated it like a challenge. We made it stronger. Then we ate it. Then we made hot sauces out of it. There are humans who collect different varieties of these things like other species collect art. But why? Sarah shrugged. Because we could. Because it was there. Because someone said it couldn't be done. Pick any of those reasons. They're all true. The same reason we climbed mountains, because they were there. The same reason we looked at the ocean and decided to see what was on the other side. The same reason we saw birds flying and thought, we should try that. She walked back to the viewport, gesturing at the blue-green planet below. That death world down there? It didn't make us tough. It made us unstoppable. We're not trapped here with all the things you think will kill us. They're trapped here with us. And we've gotten pretty good at this whole survival thing. Zaktal's wings folded and unfolded in obvious distress. The council will not be pleased. The council, Sarah said with another one of those grins that had preceded so many human hold-my-beer moments throughout history, is welcome to come and try to evacuate us. Fair warning, though, we've gotten pretty good at dealing with invasions, too. But I have a counter-proposal. A counter-proposal? See, while the council's been having kittens about our dangerous living conditions, we've been looking at your stellar maps, and we couldn't help but notice quite a few other Class 0 worlds out there. Uninhabited ones. The council representatives' metallic feathers all stood on end. You wouldn't? We would. We will. In fact, Sarah checked her watch. The first colony ship launched about 20 minutes ago. Don't worry. We're following all the proper colonization protocols. We just happen to be the only species crazy enough to colonize worlds you consider uninhabitable. But the atmospheric conditions, the gravity, the radiation, are all pretty similar to Earth, yeah. Funny how that works out. Almost like we evolved to handle exactly those conditions. Sarah's grin widened. We're calling it the Death World Expansion Initiative. Has a nice ring to it, don't you think? Zaktal made a sound like someone dropping a box of wind chimes. The council will have to revise its classification system. Probably. I'd suggest adding a new category, human habitable worlds. It'll save everyone a lot of paperwork in the long run. Sarah picked up her coffee mug, her fourth of the day. Now, would you like to discuss trade agreements? Because it occurs to me that humanity is about to become the only species capable of exploiting resources on quite a few worlds that the council previously wrote off as worthless. The council representative's wings drooped in defeat. I'll have to consult with my superiors. Take your time, Sarah said cheerfully. We'll be here, and there, and probably a few other places by the time you get back to me. Oh, and Counselor? She waited until Zaktal turned back to face her. You might want to warn the council that we've already started looking into planetary optimization technologies, just in case we find any worlds that aren't quite up to our standards. After the thoroughly traumatized council representative had left, Sarah turned back to the viewport, watching her homeworld spin below. Class 0 Death World, she muttered, shaking her head. Wait until they find out about our extreme sports. The official council classification of Earth was changed 3 months later. It now reads, Sol 3, local designation Earth, classification H0. Note, this classification denotes a human standard world. All species are advised that conditions considered normal by human standards may be lethal to most forms of life. Approach with extreme caution. Under no circumstances should non-human species attempt to prevent humans from engaging in what they consider routine activities, as this will only encourage them. Additional note, yes, they really do drink caffeine for fun. No, we don't understand it either. Please stop asking. Sarah had the classification framed and hung it in her office, right next to her collection of ghost peppers. The Death World Diplomatic Incident. They did what? Sarah's voice carried a dangerous edge that made Vkr'lak's crystalline structure vibrate with unease. The Arxian diplomat's colors swirled in what could only be described as bureaucratic panic. The Vkr'lak. They may have accidentally declared one of your colony worlds off-limits due to extreme geological instability. Sarah slowly set down her coffee mug, her 8th of the day, but who was counting? You mean the volcanic world we just established our geothermal research station on? The very same, Vkr'lak confirmed, their colors shifting to a nervous mauve. They filed the paperwork this morning. Standard quarantine procedures for tectonically unstable planets. The enforcement fleet is already en route to evacuate your scientists. The captain's office aboard the ISS had seen its fair share of diplomatic incidents over the past year, but this was the first time Sarah had actually started laughing during one. It wasn't a nice laugh. It was the kind of laugh that had preceded humanity's discovery of nuclear fission. Vkr'lak, she said finally, wiping tears from her eyes. Did anyone bother to tell the Vkr'lak about what happened the last time someone tried to evacuate humans from somewhere? The Arxian's colors drained to a pale, horrified pink. Oh no. Oh yes. Sarah tapped a few commands into her console, bringing up a holographic display of the colony in question. You see that facility there? The one built literally inside the caldera of an active volcano? Yes? That's our new geological research center. We're studying ways to harness geothermal energy more efficiently. Did you know we've been using volcanic power for centuries on Earth? There's this lovely place called Iceland. Captain Chen, Vkr'lak interrupted, their voice modulator crackling with stress. The Vkr'lak enforcement fleet will arrive in less than 6 planetary rotations. They are not known for their flexibility regarding safety regulations. Sarah's grin widened. How many ships in this enforcement fleet? 5 heavy cruisers and... Captain Chen, why are you smiling like that again? Just wondering, Sarah said innocently. Has anyone informed the Vkr'lak about humans' long and storied history with asymmetric warfare? Or our peculiar tendency to treat supposedly uninhabitable environments as prime real estate opportunities? Vkr'lak's colors shifted rapidly through several shades of alarm. Captain, what are your colonists planning? Oh, nothing much, Sarah said, scrolling through some reports on her console. Although I see here that Dr. Rodriguez's team just finished installing their new thermal vent mapping system. Interesting timing, that. Thermal vent mapping? Very useful for tracking magma flows, or, hypothetically, for precisely calculating where and when to trigger controlled seismic events. Purely for research purposes, of course. The Arxian diplomat made a sound like breaking crystal. You wouldn't. We absolutely would. But hey, if you can get the Vkr'lak to withdraw their quarantine order in the next, let's say 4 planetary rotations, we won't have to find out exactly how creative humans can get with geological warfare. You're insane, Vkr'lak whispered, their crystalline body now a kaleidoscope of horrified fascination. Your entire species is completely insane. So we've been told, Sarah agreed cheerfully, although I prefer to think of it as differently sane. Now, about that quarantine order. The Murgi enforcement fleet arrived right on schedule. They found the human colony exactly where it was supposed to be, operating exactly as it had been, with one small addition, a series of carefully placed sensors throughout the volcanic system that could, with the press of a button, trigger a chain reaction that would make the planet's current geological instability look like a gentle hiccup. The humans called it the Krakatoa Protocol. The Vkr'lak called it a violation of at least 37 different safety regulations. Sarah called it creative negotiating. The enforcement fleet left 12 hours later, after the longest and most bizarre diplomatic exchange in recent galactic history. The official report cited unexpected local adaptation to geological hazards, as the reason for withdrawing the quarantine order. The unofficial report, encrypted under the highest security protocols, simply read, "Do not attempt to evacuate humans. They will respond by becoming even more entrenched in whatever environment you're trying to remove them from. Also, they appear to have weaponized plate tectonics. Galaxy help us all." 6 months after the volcanic diplomatic incident, as it came to be known, the Galactic Council added several new clauses to their planetary classification system. Addendum to HFY classification guidelines. 1. Under no circumstances should any enforcement action be taken against human colonies without first consulting Earth's diplomatic corps. 2. The fact that humans have chosen to inhabit an environment does not automatically make that environment safe for other species. This remains true regardless of how comfortable the humans appear to be. 3. Human definitions of habitable, safe, and reasonable precautions may vary significantly from galactic standard definitions. This is normal for humans and should not be used as grounds for evacuation orders. 4. Any attempt to prevent humans from living in or exploiting dangerous environments will inevitably result in humans finding new and creative ways to live in or exploit said environments. 5. Yes, they really did build a research station inside an active volcano. No, we don't understand why either. Please stop asking. Sarah had this addendum framed as well. She hung it next to the original classification, right above her collection of souvenir rocks from various uninhabitable worlds. The ghost peppers were coming along nicely too. She'd started growing them in zero gravity just to see what would happen. The resulting strain was 3 times spicier than the Earth variety. She was planning to send some to Vkr'lak as a diplomatic gift. After all, what better way to demonstrate humanity's unique approach to environmental challenges than with a plant they'd engineered to be unnecessarily dangerous, grown in conditions that should have killed it? The tourist trap. No, absolutely not. This is where I draw the line. Sarah stared at the proposal floating in her hollow screen, her eye twitching slightly. Her coffee mug, unlucky number 13 of the day, sat forgotten on her desk. Vkr'lak, who had somehow become humanity's unofficial liaison to the Galactic Council despite their better judgment, pulsed with cautious optimism. But Captain Chen, surely you can see the potential benefits, the cultural exchange opportunities alone. You want to turn Earth into a tourist destination for adrenaline-seeking aliens, Sarah interrupted flatly. An extreme survival experience package, on my homeworld. Well, when you put it that way. The proposal literally includes the phrase, "Experience the thrill of surviving on a Class HGO death world under controlled conditions," Sarah read aloud. Is this right? With authentic human guides and genuine terrestrial survival challenges? Vkr'lak's crystalline form sparkled with what Sarah had learned to recognize as their equivalent of an enthusiastic nod. The Council's tourism board believes it could be quite popular. There's been enormous interest in human survival capabilities since your species joined the galactic community. Many species are fascinated by your ability to thrive in conditions that would kill most sentients. Sarah pinched the bridge of her nose. Vkr'lak, what exactly do these authentic survival experiences entail? Oh, nothing too extreme. Just some basic human activities. Mountain climbing, deep-sea diving, something called ziplining. Ziplining? Sarah interrupted. You want to attach tourists from species that consider Earth's gravity lethal to a cable and send them sliding down it at high speed? Under proper safety protocols, of course. We've developed special containment suits that should protect non-human species from Earth's more challenging aspects. The oxygen-rich atmosphere, the crushing gravity, the extreme temperature variations. Uh-huh. Sarah leaned back in her chair, her expression dangerous. And who exactly would be liable if something goes wrong? Because I'm looking at this waiver form, and it seems to place an awful lot of responsibility on the authentic human guides. Vkr'lak's colors shifted to a diplomatic shade of evasive. Well, given humanity's unique understanding of terrestrial hazards. Right. Sarah started typing rapidly on her console. I'm sending you some historical footage. These are clips of what happened the last few times humanity was put in charge of guided experiences for visitors. Pay special attention to the section labeled Spring Break. There was a long moment of silence as Vkr'lak processed the data stream. Their colors gradually drained from enthusiastic purple to horrified white. They voluntarily jump off perfectly good flying machines? With only a piece of fabric to slow their descent? That's skydiving, yes. And these images of humans strapped to boards, sliding down frozen precipitation at high speed. Snowboarding. Pretty tame compared to the wingsuit footage I sent. Wingsuit? Vkr'lak's voice modulator cracked on the word. Oh yes. That's where we jump off cliffs wearing special suits that let us glide through the air, like flying squirrels, but with a higher mortality rate. But why? Sarah shrugged. For fun, mostly. Sometimes we film it and put it on the internet for likes. Vkr'lak's crystalline structure vibrated with distress. And these activities, these are what your species considers entertainment? Some of us, yeah. Those are actually pretty mainstream compared to some of our extreme sports. Have you heard about free solo climbing? That's where we climb cliffs without any safety equipment at all. Or cave diving. That's when we squeeze through underwater tunnels with limited oxygen supply just to see what's on the other side. Captain Chen, Vkr'lak said carefully, their colors now cycling through various shades of concern. Are you suggesting that if we approve this tourism initiative? Oh, I'm not suggesting anything, Sarah said with a smile that made Vkr'lak's crystalline structure vibrate with anxiety. I'm stating outright that if you put humans in charge of showing aliens an authentic Earth survival experience, things are going to get out of hand very quickly. We can't help ourselves. It's like an entire species with collective impulse control issues when it comes to dangerous activities. She pulled up another file on her holoscreen. For example, I'm looking at the proposed itinerary for these tours, and I notice it doesn't include anything about human food and beverage customs. Did you know we regularly consume neurotoxins for pleasure? Coffee, alcohol, capsaicin. We've turned poison resistance into a recreational activity. Surely you wouldn't. Oh, but we would. Give us half a chance and we'll have interstellar food challenges going viral across the galaxy. Watch as Ambassador Zektal tries their first ghost pepper. You won't believe what happened when the Vkr'lak delegation discovered tequila. Sarah's grin widened. And that's not even getting into what would happen once humans start competing for best tour guide ratings. Vkr'lak made a sound like shattering glass. Competing? Mm-hmm. Nothing brings out human creativity quite like trying to one-up each other. One guide offers mountain climbing. The next one adds base jumping. Someone introduces alien tourists to surfing. The next day, another guide is organizing volcano boarding sessions. Volcano boarding? Oh yes. It's exactly what it sounds like. We slide down active volcanoes on reinforced sleds. For fun. Sometimes we race. Vkr'lak's colors had faded to a pale, horrified beige. I believe I should recommend the tourism board reconsider this proposal. Probably wise, Sarah agreed. Although, she trailed off thoughtfully. Although, Vkr'lak asked, their tone suggesting they really didn't want to know. Well, if the council is really interested in cultural exchange programs, I do have a counter-proposal. How would you feel about a human extreme sports demonstration tour? We could visit various council worlds, show off some of our recreational activities. Strictly as observers only, of course. Of course. Vkr'lak agreed quickly, clearly relieved. Then they processed the rest of what Sarah had said. Wait, what do you mean by demonstration tour? Sarah's smile would have made a great white shark proud. Oh, you know, a few base jumping exhibitions, maybe some parkour demonstrations. That's where we treat urban architecture as an obstacle course. Perhaps a few freestyle climbing displays. Captain Chen, Vkr'lak interrupted, their colors now flashing emergency red. Are you suggesting that humans would perform these activities on council worlds? Well, we'd have to adapt to local conditions, of course. Different gravity, atmospheric composition, terrain features. It would be quite the challenge. Sarah's eyes gleamed with the kind of enthusiasm that had preceded every major human disaster and breakthrough in history. Think of it as a diplomatic outreach program, showing the galaxy what humans can do when we put our minds to it. Vkr'lak was silent for a long moment, their colors cycling through what appeared to be every possible shade of horrified fascination. Finally, they asked, "How long would it take you to organize such a tour?" Sarah checked her calendar. "Give me 2 weeks. We've got plenty of volunteers already. Turns out the extreme sports community is very interested in testing their skills in alien environments. Something about expanding the boundaries of human achievement and sick alien planet tricks for the YouTube channel." "I'll inform the council," Vkr'lak said weakly, although I suspect this may necessitate yet another addendum to the HFY classification guidelines. "Probably," Sarah agreed cheerfully. "You might want to add a note about human recreational activities while you're at it, just to warn people." 2 months later, the The Galactic Council did indeed add another section to their human classification guidelines. Addendum regarding human recreational activities. 1. What humans consider entertainment may be classified as suicidally dangerous behavior by most species standards. This is normal for humans. 2. Under no circumstances should humans be encouraged to demonstrate their extreme sports capabilities on non-Earth worlds without extensive safety preparations and liability waivers. 3. The phrase "hold my beer" should be treated as an immediate evacuation warning for all non-human species in the vicinity. 4. Yes, they really do slide down active volcanoes for fun. No, we still don't understand why. Please stop asking. Sarah had this framed too. Her office walls were getting rather crowded with official council documentation about human insanity, but she figured it added character. Besides, she needed something to look at while she planned the first interstellar extreme sports exhibition tour. Vkr'lak had already filed for stress leave just from reading the preliminary itinerary. Sarah considered that a promising start. The education problem. With all due respect, Captain Chen, this has to stop. Sarah looked up from her terminal to find not just Vkr'lak, but an entire delegation of council representatives crowded into her office aboard the ISS. She counted 6 different species, each looking more distressed than the last. Her coffee mug, she'd lost count after 20, steamed innocently on her desk. What exactly needs to stop? She asked, though she had a sneaking suspicion she knew exactly what this was about. Zikatal, their metallic feathers ruffled in agitation, stepped forward. The cultural contamination. The what now? Your species' influence on galactic youth, burst out a Muraxi representative, their fur standing on end. It's becoming an epidemic. Sarah fought to keep a straight face. I'm afraid you'll have to be more specific. Vkr'lak's colors swirled in what she'd learned to recognize as their equivalent of an exasperated sigh. Perhaps it would be better to show you. They activated a holoprojector, displaying a series of news headlines from across the galaxy. Breaking: Arxian youth caught attempting parkour in zero-gravity habitat. HFY University's reports surge in extreme engineering clubs. Council concerned as human-style adventure tourism gains popularity. Local teens attempt to recreate Earth sports in toxic atmosphere. Sarah scrolled through the headlines, her grin growing wider with each one. I'm still not seeing the problem. Not seeing the Muraxi representative's translator squealed with incredulity. Young sentients across the galaxy are attempting to emulate human recreational activities. Do you have any idea how many safety regulations this violates? 12,437 at last count, Zekatal supplied helpfully, not including subsections. And that's just the beginning, another representative chimed in, this one looking like a sentient cloud of sparkles. We've had reports of students attempting to create their own extreme sports adapted for their species' physiologies. Last week, a group of young Arxians tried to organize something called a lava surfing competition. Did they succeed? Sarah asked, genuinely curious. Captain Chen! Vkr'lak's colors flashed warning red. That is not the point. No, really, I want to know. Did they figure out how to compensate for their crystalline structure in high temperatures? Because that's actually quite impressive from an engineering standpoint. This is exactly the problem. The Muraxi representative's fur was now puffed out to twice its normal size. Your species' casual disregard for safety is infectious. Sarah leaned back in her chair, steepling her fingers. So, let me get this straight. Young people across the galaxy are getting interested in engineering, physical challenges, and creative problem-solving. And this is somehow a bad thing? They're trying to recreate human activities in environments that should be lethal to them. Ah, Sarah nodded sagely. So they're adapting and overcoming environmental challenges through innovation and technology, pushing the boundaries of what's possible for their species, refusing to be limited by traditional constraints? Yes, chorused the delegation. Sounds terrible, Sarah said with mock seriousness. Almost like they're learning and growing as sentients, developing new capabilities, expanding their species' potential. Truly horrible stuff. The delegation exchanged worried glances. Well, most of them did. The sentient cloud of sparkles just sort of swirled anxiously. Captain Chen, Vkr'lak said carefully, are you suggesting that this cultural shift was intentional? Sarah's innocent expression wouldn't have fooled a human toddler. Me? Never. Though I do find it interesting that after centuries of being told certain things were impossible, Young people across the galaxy are suddenly discovering that impossible might just mean hasn't been tried with enough creativity yet. She paused thoughtfully, almost like exposure to human approaches to problem-solving is encouraging them to question established limitations. But the safety regulations, the Merxy representative started, are being carefully studied and worked around through innovative engineering solutions, Sarah interrupted. Or did you miss the part where these kids aren't just copying human activities, but adapting them to work safely for their own species? That takes serious scientific understanding and creative thinking. She pulled up one of the news articles. Look at this. The Arxian parkour enthusiasts developed a whole new type of gravity manipulation technology to make it work safely in their habitat. And these Vkr'lak engineering students? They've created environmental suits that let them safely explore environments that were previously considered completely off-limits to their species. But, the Sparkle Cloud representative seemed to be having trouble processing this perspective. And let's talk about these extreme engineering clubs, Sarah continued cheerfully. I've read some of their project proposals. They're revolutionizing environmental adaptation technology, coming up with solutions that nobody's ever thought of before. All because they saw humans doing something impossible and thought, hey, maybe we could do that too, if we approach it differently. The delegation was silent for a long moment. Finally, Vkr'lak asked, are you saying we should encourage this behavior? I'm saying, Sarah replied, her expression now serious, that maybe instead of trying to stamp out this enthusiasm for exploration and innovation, you should be thinking about how to channel it productively. After all, isn't the point of joining a galactic community to learn from each other? To expand our collective horizons? She stood up and walked to her wall of framed council documents. Every one of these classifications and addendums focuses on how humans are different, how we're dangerous, how we don't fit galactic standards. But has anyone stopped to consider that maybe, just maybe, we're not the ones who need to change? What do you mean? Zekatal asked, their metallic feathers twitching with curiosity. I mean that every species has its own unique capabilities and perspectives. Humans? We're really good at looking at impossible situations and finding ways to make them possible. Not always safely, not always gracefully, but we keep pushing boundaries. And now? Now we're sharing that perspective with the galaxy. And young people everywhere are starting to ask what if, instead of just accepting it can't be done. Sarah turned back to the delegation with a smile that somehow managed to be both encouraging and slightly terrifying. So maybe instead of trying to stop this cultural contamination, you should be thinking about how to harness it. After all, these kids aren't just copying human recklessness. They're combining human creativity with their own species' unique capabilities to create something entirely new. The delegation members looked at each other uncertainly. Finally, Vkr'lak said, the council will need to reconsider its approach to this situation. Excellent idea, Sarah agreed. And while you're at it, you might want to look into establishing some interspecies engineering competitions. Give these kids a legitimate outlet for their creativity. Maybe some sort of galactic extreme sports festival, with each species showcasing their own unique approaches to challenging their limitations. Captain Chen, Vkr'lak interrupted, their colors cycling through warning shades. Are you suggesting we officially sanction this behavior? I'm suggesting, Sarah said with another one of those grins that had preceded so many revolutionary moments in human history, that you can either fight this cultural shift and lose, or embrace it and help guide it in productive directions. Your choice. She paused, then added casually, though you might want to decide quickly. I hear there's a group of young Vkr'lak working on something they're calling Zero-G Parkour Wrestling, and I'm pretty sure they're planning to livestream their first tournament. The delegation left in a hurry after that, already arguing about the best way to establish safety guidelines for activities that shouldn't technically be possible. Sarah watched them go, then turned to her terminal and began typing up a proposal for the first annual Galactic Youth Innovation Games. She had a feeling things were about to get very interesting. 3 months later, the council added yet another addendum to their human classification guidelines. Regarding human cultural influence. 1. The tendency of human approaches to problem-solving to inspire innovative thinking in other species should be considered both a feature and a warning sign. 2. All educational institutions are advised to establish proper safety protocols before their students inevitably attempt to recreate or adapt human recreational activities. 3. The phrase theoretically impossible should no longer be used in any official documentation, as it appears to act as a challenge to human-influenced youth. 4. Yes, they really are starting to spread their particular brand of insanity across the galaxy. No, we can't stop it. Please stop asking. Sarah had this one frame too, but she hung it in the new Galactic Youth Innovation Center instead of her office. She figured it would serve as better inspiration there. Besides, her office walls were getting a bit crowded with all the documentation of humanity's impact on galactic society. Though she did keep space free for whatever new classifications would inevitably be needed once the innovation games got started. After all, nothing inspired human creativity quite like organized competition. And now they had an entire galaxy of young minds ready to join in the fun. The end, until the next inevitable human-induced crisis.